Good afternoon all. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that we are meeting today, and also the Bunurong and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, who include French Island within their traditional territory. This presentation is intended to provide a brief overview of the Victorian situation as it applies to feral cats. I'm presenting this as a small business consultant, so we'll move right into it. The Victorian Government declared feral cats to be a pest species that must be controlled in July 2018. Prior to this, control was undertaken using seizure powers under the Wildlife Act in 1975. In reality, there was intensive work at some discrete sites, but many conservation areas within the state just didn't bother. The recent declaration and access to the more effective tools that is available are tied to specific land tenures, those being only applicable to national parks, some Crown land, alpine resorts and Phillip Island nature parks. The Victorian Government advertises on their website that feral cats have a major impact on Victoria's biodiversity and are one of the most significant threats to our native wildlife. So we'll just check in on that and see what we can actually do. So this decision tree is my attempt to visualise access to tools available to Victorian land managers, quite broadly, not just conservation land managers, and it was reviewed by key policy staff from the relevant agencies before its publication. Outside of the feral cat declaration areas, cage traps, authorised shooting and installation of signage can be used. Within declaration areas, conservation land managers can also use detection or bailing dogs, and although there are a few legitimate suppliers of recognised conservation dogs. The curiosity bait, which uses PAP, can also be used, and that is registered within Victoria. It's subject to some very time-consuming risk assessment process before each use. I had a bit to do with the development of this bait, and despite considerable development work being largely undertaken on French Island and 2 previous applications on French Island, it still took us several months last year to get approval to use this bait for the 2022 baiting operation. Hoop traps are a prototype device, obviously less invasive than other capture tools that are currently available, but Vic state policy still requires these things have a 4-hour trap inspection. Leg hold traps, the state policy does allow now for the use of leg hold traps for feral cats. However, the policy under that basically ties that to eradication sites within the state, which is essentially just going to be French Island. Felixa, yeah, righto. So we can only use it in camera-only mode in Victoria. So 1080 is not a registered pesticide for feral cats in Victoria, so there's been very limited work and it's only camera-only mode, and there doesn't seem to be any appetite at all to use it in the state from the regulator's perspective. Land managers different. So the limitations on access to tools has undoubtedly reduced the efficacy and ecological outcomes achieved in Victoria's feral cat management and threatened species recovery and translocation programs. The leadbeater's possum and eastern barred bandicoot programs are primary examples that I'd argue that the care goes into these threatened species is not matched by the state's invasive species policies, with a distinct gap between what the website promotes and the operational delivery. So we get situations where threatened species are essentially dropped into predator-rich environments and done so repetitively. Which brings us to French Island. My career with feral cats started on French Island in the mid-90s, and I've been on and off there since that time. I know my way around the island now. French Island, it's on the television every night. Most people in Melbourne have never heard of it, let alone visited. It's the largest island in Victoria, and it's just near where the presenters. It's never obscured from the screen. It's only 70 kilometres southeast of Melbourne, 139 people reside there. It's quite different with regards to regulation. There's no local government, and this really impacts domestic animal regulation. 2/3 of the national park is, 2/3 of the island is national park. Essentially all the dark green you can see on that weather map is national park. Very dense heathland, extensive fringing salt marsh, ramsar values. It's just a brilliant site. 34 threatened fauna species, and we were fortunate to be able to start our eradication program in 2018, if you like, with the installation of an island-wide camera array that has operated continuously since that time. So some quick pics of the island. It's a proper island, there's a moat around the edge, you know, we're not going to get re-invasion from the island. Very dense heathland, camera arrays across the island. It's a brilliant site, but don't care there's too many mosquitoes. Right, so the eradication program itself followed an extensive and very significant effort by local land managers, initially by Parks Victoria in 2010, which was joined in with the French Island Landcare Group in 2012. By extensive and intensive, I mean 80 to 100 traps per night over 16 weeks using KFC as the lure. 1,200 cats were removed. Throughout that decade, Landcare also took a very serious attitude to responsible pet ownership, sterilisation of all pet cats, microchipping of most, and containing or encouraging containing those cats, recognising there's no ability to stop new cats from coming to the island. The eradication effort began in 2021 after 3 years of regulatory change. We kicked it off with baiting within the national park, and that was then followed up with lead hold and cage trapping across the island. Some shooting effort over summer. The improvement you can see on the charts in the bottom corner there is largely to the addition of lead hold traps being involved in that capture success. Well above the stagnating capture success we had with the cage trap only effort. However, 22nd July 2022, Project Control Board stopped the use of lead hold traps due to concerns about the rate of capture of wildlife species. And in my opinion, this was the end of eradication effort on this project. We completely violated the established rules for eradication operations. As a result, trapping contractors left. I got a bit rowdy, my position was terminated. 14th of August, we got this photo. The failure had started. An additional cage trap effort over a period of 2 months resulted in the capture of 0 cats for 8,000 trap nights. Thermal drone and shooting effort was finally supported. So let's talk about successes, key wins from this project. The degree of community engagement and the support for cat sterilisation, identification and 60% and the use of private land was available. Biodiversity response to the island has been absolutely brilliant. Challenges. Internal policies added unnecessary frustration and complication. Illogical nuisances such as the inability to purchase cage trap lures or using drones at night in the park. Silly. The release of bandicoots ahead of the cat eradication project confounded eradication, efficient cat removal in the release site. The inability to use Felixar. We first had it on the island in 2019. Our non-target hazard was understood. No Potoroos would have been target. We don't recognise it's not a silver bullet, but we want silver shotguns in our game. Where are we up to? So, look, we had some local issues. The island was really wet, so we've got some track management issues. Bigger issues though, the Project Control Board. Did they remove policy barriers? Were they excited about a successful outcome to the project? We had a project technical reference group, highly experienced island restoration specialists that provided expertise when requested. They were formally advised about the removal of lead hold traps 54 days after it happened, and there's been no contact since. Potoroo captures were an issue, but I'll vouch that there's more Potoroos on the island now than there has been for over 50 years. I'd like to finish up there. The cat team that we had on island, the trap team, were absolutely brilliant. No dramas, but this is a situation where we had a very effective team on ground. but we just didn't get the support where we needed it from a Pond High. So we might finish it there.